describe the internet as the prototype for the information superhighway, but I just don't get it. You know, this information superhighway stuff sounds like a lot of super hype to me.
Well, of course it is. But the internet does represent a new form of communication, and this is the best part. You don't have to be a computer geek to take a spin on it.
Hey, watch it, John. Some of my best friends are geeks.
The Internet Show is made possible by support of the Compaq Computer Corporation through the Compaq Foundation, developing technology for developing minds, and by annual financial support from viewers like you.
Oh, John, watch that.
Oh.
You know, just because we're talking about the internet and the data superhighway doesn't mean we've got to bore people with talk of on-ramps and off-ramps and all that stuff.
Of course not. Let's just say it's a way to connect to people all over the world. You can learn new things, you can have fun, you can use resources in faraway places.
Hold the wheel.
Sorry. Are you ready?
Gosh, I guess so. I'm Gina Smith, and I'll be one of your internet tour guides.
I'm John Levine. Together, Gina and I will be offering some driver's ed for the information superhighway. We'll be guiding, no, driving you non-geeks on the world's largest computer network, the internet.
We'll be explaining to you how it works. We'll show you how some people are using it. But most importantly, we'll show how you can begin using it yourself. John, that's our exit.
We're headed for the Fondren Library on the campus of Rice University here in Houston.
This is really appropriate since the ability to reach university resources like this library here is one of the major reasons for the internet. Academic institutions around the world are making their storehouses of information available on the net.
Students at Rice can easily reach the internet through a campus-wide computer network. For example, they can search for books in this library without even leaving their dorm rooms. Furthermore, Rice has created a regional computer network that allows computers here on campus to reach the rest of the internet and vice versa.
Now, maybe you've read or heard about the internet, but you're still not exactly sure what it is. Well, if that's the case, don't worry. In no time at all, you'll be able to impress everyone with your amazing techno savvy. The first thing you need to understand is what a computer network is. And that is simply a bunch of computers linked together so they can communicate and share information. The internet, on the other hand, is a collection of computer networks on a local, regional, national, and even international level. Put simply, the internet is just a network of networks.
Simple the internet isn't, but using it can be rather easy. In some ways, it's a lot like your car. You don't have to know how every single part works in order to drive to some wonderful places. All you need to use the internet are
a computer and a network connection. That connection could simply be a phone line and a modem like this one. A modem is just a device that lets your computer communicate over a phone line. Oh, and you'll also need an internet account, but we'll explain more about that later.
Oh, and one other thing. There is no internet corporation. No one owns the internet. No one group controls or finances it. It's the result of a cooperative effort by a lot of organizations and people. At least, most of the time they cooperate.
Now, at some points, we might find ourselves lapsing into the jargon of the internet. And if we do that, don't worry. We affectionately call it geek speak.
When we do, we'll sound the nerd alert.
And that's when we'll explain in plain English what we're talking about. For example, a nerd is someone whose life is focused on computers and technology. But a geek is someone whose life is focused on computers and technology and likes it that way.
We'll have plenty to explain and plenty to talk about because the internet is full of neat stuff.
The variety on the internet is one of its most incredible aspects, and there are literally hundreds, if not thousands, of neat things you can do on it. For example, just say you have a trip planned to Paris and you want to know how to get around on the metro. That's the Paris subway system.
A man named Pierre David set up a way for you to connect with his computer in Paris, ask how to get from point A to point B on the metro, and get an answer. For example, here we have a map of Paris with the Eiffel Tower being here, Montmartre, where I want to go, over here. Click on this screen here. I'm coming from the Eiffel Tower, going to Montmartre, and it tells me it'll take 25 minutes. First I take line 6, then I take line 8. I'm all set for my trip. Talk about pre-planning. He also has subway maps for New York, London, and a lot of other major cities.
Another neat thing is keeping up with friends in faraway places. Just suppose you wanted to send a message to a friend in Hong Kong. Well, you can use electronic mail on the internet, and your friend can be reading your message on the computer a few minutes later.
You can check out all kinds of graphic images on the internet. For example, lots of people translate photographs into computer images that you can display on your machine. But I'm partial to some internet comic strips. Some people call them net-toons. Here's one of my favorites called Dr. Fun.
Now here's something seriously neat. It's called the Online Career Center. It has career information and a database of all kinds of jobs from all around the country. The center is run by a nonprofit cooperative of major companies in the U.S.
Or maybe you want to pick up a little spare cash and get rid of some of that junk around the house. Well, there are even places on the net to do that.
Hey, John, I saw you write that address down. Don't lie. We have a lot of other neat things to show you, including how you can pick up free software for your computer. That's coming up later as we demonstrate just how easy it is for an Internaut.
Oh, this isn't a hard one. An Internaut is someone on the internet, boldly going where, well, millions of people have gone before. An Internaut is the cyberspace equivalent of an astronaut.
Cyberspace was a term invented by a science fiction writer to describe a fictional environment where computers and people lived and worked together. On the internet, cyberspace means roughly the same thing. It includes the computers, the network connections, and the software and computer data that make up the net.
Okay, now that we know what these words mean, we thought it would help to explain a little bit about how the internet works and how it came to be what it is.
The predecessor of the internet was a child of the Cold War, first developed by the Defense Department's Advanced Research Projects Agency, or ARPA, partly to ensure that data communications could survive in case of a nuclear.
Created in the late 1960s, ARPANET first connected 4 computers at California and Utah campuses using a new networking technique. It allowed researchers to run programs on remote computers. Later, other research institutions and military sites were added. The idea was that even if one part of the system were damaged, the rest would still function, and it worked.
By 1990, the network, by then known as the Internet, had developed to the point where ARPANET was no longer a significant part of it. So ARPA dropped out, and organizations such as the National Science Foundation started maintaining the Internet. And for the first time, commercial users began joining it.
The story of the Internet is still unfolding. Today, there are over 1 million computers and more than 20 million people on the Internet, and it's growing at something like 10% every month. People on every continent,
including Antarctica, use it. The people on the Internet use it for their businesses, they use it for their studies, and they even use it for fun and games. They also use all kinds of computers, from PCs and Macs and Amigas, all the way up through giant supercomputers. But they all use the same networking technique. It's called packet switching, and it works sort of like our transportation system.
Journalists are hyping you day by day. Information highway is your name, they say.
Hello.
Now let's pretend for a moment that our information superhighway quartet is really a message that we're going to send across the country on the internet.
All 4 of the Golden Throats have laryngitis and have had to cancel out of New York tonight. I said we'd fill in for them.
Well, that is pretty short notice.
How fast can we get to New York?
How fast can we get to the airport?
Within the confines of their own city, transport is pretty easy since the roads they have to take are all connected. That's why their car has no trouble negotiating the route to the airport hub. In the same way, a computer file has no trouble reaching its destination on a local computer network because such networks are designed to accommodate movement of files.
I've got your tickets right here. Mr. Wilson?
Yes.
There's only 1 seat left on the nonstop, and it's yours. It's boarding right now. Mr. January?
It's me.
You're on a flight.
Once our file reaches an internet hub, the switching computer may assign parts of it to different paths because routes are too full to accommodate the entire file all at once. So the file is divided into packets of information.
Everything else was booked.
Oh, no.
You have to fly to Denver, change planes, fly to Chicago, change planes again,
Because our quartet hasn't made travel arrangements in advance and the planes are nearly full, they have to split up too. Members of our quartet board planes that take different routes also, but they all arrive at the same destination. On the internet, a computer reassembles the message so you can use it. Our quartet reassembles too, and that's an illustration. It moves data from one place to another.
Highway, I'm online with you.
Now that we've come in for a landing, when Internauts are online, what's their favorite activity?
Now, I bet that's a rhetorical question, and now you're just going to have to tell us, right?
That's what I'm here for. You can do a lot of different things on the internet, but more than anything else, people use it for electronic mail, or email for short. Email consists of messages sent through a computer. And on the internet, you can send email to the millions of people who have internet addresses. This includes people who have accounts with commercial services such as CompuServe, America Online, Prodigy, Delphi, and the like.
In order to send mail, you have to first understand internet addresses, which are based on the domain naming system. Let's show you what we found when we went out with our camera. The abbreviated word on the right, GOV, means this is part of what's called a government domain. NASA is a subdomain, as is JSC, which stands for Johnson Space Center. Now see how the words are separated by a period or dot. Now notice that the name on the left is separated from the rest by an @ symbol. That's the username. Sometimes people use their real names as usernames, and sometimes they use nicknames, like Astronaut. COM means this is part of the commercial domain, either a business that's directly on the net or a provider of internet access for business people. In this case, IECC is the company providing access to the net. Another domain you'll see on the net is EDU for education. It's used by faculty, students, and administrators at educational institutions.
And if you send mail overseas, you'll find that addresses usually contain a 2-letter abbreviation for the country, such as TN for Tunisia or UK for the United Kingdom.
Now, email has several advantages over regular mail, or snail mail as the Internauts like to call it. One of the biggest advantages is that messages reach their destinations, what we call electronic mailboxes, almost instantaneously. Let me show you. Now, I can bring up my mail here, and you can see I have a message from a coworker who wants to see if there's a day next week I can fly in for the budget review meeting. Well, I hate budgeting, and so right away I can do that just by clicking on this reply button here. And I'm going to make up some sort of excuse. Sorry, I have the flu. Maybe he'll buy it. Now, I can also insert information from his message so he'll remember what I'm talking about. You see include original, and put it right here, and I can send it along. And he should be getting it right about now. Now he knows when I want to meet with him, which is definitely not next week or anytime soon, and it all happened within a minute or two, even though he's in New Jersey and I'm here in Texas.
If other coworkers need to see that message, you can, with just a few clicks or keystrokes, send it on to them. Or maybe you want to send the same message to a number of people. That is no problem. And you can attach computer files to your notes so you could forward a lengthy letter without having to retype it.
That means that email really is much more efficient than regular mail or faxes. But there is one thing we should point out, and that is that your computer screen may look a lot different from what we've shown you here. We've shown you screens that use color and graphics, but many services on the internet are text-based and may just appear in black and white, like this screen we're showing you here. It really all depends on who's providing your internet access and on what software. The internet has many different looks, but whatever the screen, the concepts are more or less the same.
Let's look in a little more detail at what's involved in sending and receiving electronic mail. I've switched to my mailbox here, and what do you know, here's a message from Doug. So I'll click on the View button here, light up this message, and it says, Gina says she's too sick to come to the meeting. Can you come instead? Well, how about that? So now I specifically click on Reply. It's addressed it. It says to D. Evans, which is his electronic mail address. He has a topic about the budget meeting. So now I'll just type in an answer. I'll see how she feels tomorrow. I don't have to sign it. It automatically puts my return address on it. So I send it. But before I do anything else, let's just take a quick look and think, Gina didn't look so sick. I'll make a new message here and send it to her. So I have to address this one specifically. It goes to Gina. Then I have to set a subject. How sick are you? And type in a message here. Doug says you called in sick. You looked okay kayaking yesterday. Before I send this off, I'm going to make one more change. I'm going to send a copy of it to myself to keep a copy for my files. Set that. So now I've set it, I'm sending it to Gina, sending a copy to myself, set the subject, and send it off. So that's really all there is to sending electronic mail. It's as simple as that.
People like email because it changes the way they communicate for the better. In West Virginia, junior high students in the small and isolated town of Harts used email on the internet to get help with challenging science projects.
The students love the internet. They love to communicate to people all over the country, all over the world.
8th graders in Carol O'Connell's class at Harts Junior Senior High participated in a program called Science by Electronic Mail that was sponsored by the Marshall University School of Medicine. They conducted experiments with the help of scientific mentors who had agreed to communicate with the students by email and to provide guidance.
Even if you're in a big city, how many times do you meet an astrophysicist that you can talk to about black holes or talk to about their research and find out what they do? And the mentorship was wonderful because they found out, yes, these people are real people. They just went to school, they have an education, and they're working on something important in their lives, and I can do this too.
In one project, the students measured blood pressure of male and female students at the school. They sent their results by email to the faculty and a medical student at Marshall University School of Medicine in Huntington, West Virginia. The medical professionals checked the results and then provided feedback via the internet. At the completion of the study, the students learned that their female subjects had slightly higher blood pressure rates. But for many students, the most significant thing they learned was how to communicate over the internet. The students also struck up friendships with other students as far away as Austria and New Zealand via electronic mail on the internet. Susan Demasquita, who helped lead the program, saw other benefits as well.
Working with these young people brought a lot of satisfaction in that, in a small way, hopefully I encouraged some children to seriously consider being a scientist or a physician or an engineer.
And some children in this rather isolated part of our nation got a glimpse of a wider world.
Now, we've shown you how the internet began, explained how it works, and even shown you how to use email to communicate. In a few minutes, we're going to tell you about internet etiquette, or netiquette, and we'll show you some additional ways you can communicate on the net.
But first, it's time to communicate with this public television station. If you enjoy informative programming on public TV, call the number on your screen and let them know by making a pledge. Your financial support will help this station to continue to provide this kind of television to you.
Most people use the internet for communications, but that can mean a lot more than just emailing messages to friends.
One of my favorite parts of the internet is Usenet. Let's say you're into world travel, or bird watching, or making beer.
Or ancient civilizations, or talking about parent-teen relationships, or maybe you're into nude sunbathing.
I hoped you weren't going to mention that. But on Usenet, you can read messages from and send messages to people who share your interests, whatever they are. Usenet has thousands of discussion groups on diverse subjects. They're called news groups.
Now, you can subscribe to any news group you like. As for me, I'm partial to one on the environment, listed as sci.environment, and I get all the messages posted to that group. Let's look at what's waiting for me now. I just click here on my news reader, and you can see there are lots of messages here on the environment. People are commenting on isotope ratios and deep ecology and the conference in Geneva. But here's one from someone who's seeking help on the Northwest forest fires. And he says he's just looking for information, and I can click here and see all the responses, and of course everybody is putting in their 2 cents worth. It's pretty interesting to check out what people have to say about these things.
You can also post messages to news groups. Keep in mind that posting an internet message is a lot like tacking up a message on a corkboard. Everyone can see it, and on the internet, those people are all over the world, so be prudent. Now here's a news group I like. It concerns telephone systems. It's a little technical, but the stuff can be interesting. So I'll switch here, and I'll click on its name, which is comp.dcom, originally data communications.telecom. There's a few seconds pause while it goes and reads through the titles of all the lines to make a list of them. And here's a typical question. Someone's wondering how many telephone companies own cross-continental telephone lines, and they have an estimate here. And I can go through and find a few more messages. Now, I actually think I happen to know the answer, that the number of transcontinental telephone lines is 42. Maybe it's right, maybe it's not, but I want to tell everyone. So I'm going to press the post button. I'm going to type in a suitable topic here. And I'll type in my response here, which is, I'm sure the answer is 42. It'll automatically add in my signature. I click on the post button. There is a delay of a few seconds while the message is sent out to the network. And as soon as that box goes away, now that message is sent out, and in a few hours, people all over the world will be able to see it. It's as easy as that.
One thing you should know is that censorship is not a part of the internet culture. In fact, technically speaking, it's pretty much impossible. That's why the internet might contain some material that seems offensive to you, and it also explains why you might get spammed.
Now, spam, as we all know, is a meat-related food product. But on the internet, spamming means sending thousands of copies of the same message to people all over Usenet. Now, some people have done it in the mistaken belief that it's an effective way to advertise, but take it from me, it's not.
So because there's no censorship, you may find some news groups devoted to topics you'll find offensive. And the easy answer to this is just don't read them, or at least don't look at their pictures.
But the vast majority of news groups offer a wonderful way to communicate with people all around the world on nearly every conceivable topic. This communication can even have some influence on history. For example, when Russian officials attempted a coup against President Gorbachev in 1991, the internet played a crucial role in thwarting it.
The plotters struck while Gorbachev was on vacation. They hoped to expand their limited support by controlling the flow of information to the West, and particularly to the Russian people. They censored the news and most Russian media and restricted phone links to the West. Television was reduced to playing just operas and old movies. But the plotters forgot about a Russian computer network named Relcom.
Mikhail Gorbachev is now on vacation. He's undergoing treatment.
It was kind of, you know, when you see TV going up with all those faces reminding Stalinist ministers, it's kind of a chilly feeling, like a flashback to the past. Some Yeltsin's helpers were running around the city trying to find photocopiers. The first piece of paper we got was the first decree by Yeltsin, and we simply typed it in, sent it to the network, and made copies they wanted. When we got quite a lot of requests for more information from people on the net, we contacted Yeltsin's people and asked them to provide us regular information.
Vadim was glad to hear from friends in the West who wanted to help. One was a California professor who used the internet to contact Relcom.
They asked me to just summarize the news as we were seeing it in the West. So I listened to the radio, and every couple hours I would make a summary, type that as an email message, and then send that to Relcom, and then they would circulate it within the Soviet Union. And at the same time I was doing that, a colleague, Jonathan Gruden, was in Denmark at the time, and he was doing the same from that point of view.
Ordinary Russians also provided eyewitness reports to the engineers and technicians at Relcom. These stories, along with the Western media reports, began to provide a steady stream of information to people across the Soviet Union. Relcom workers also posted the decrees of Boris Yeltsin, even though Russian media was mostly silent about Yeltsin's defiance.
Basically, people who planned the coup were expecting that as soon as they say the mass media, they will create impressions they already won, and regional officials will line up to swear allegiance to them. Now, by providing alternative information, we made it clear that the question is still not decided, who is on the top.
President Gorbachev returned to Moscow and overcame the coup attempt. And the extraordinary reform movement that led to the dissolution of the Soviet Union survived.
Another way to find groups of people who share your interests is through mailing lists, or lists for short. Lists serve pretty much the same function. People send messages back and forth to other people interested in the same topics. But with lists, messages are delivered straight to the electronic mailboxes of the recipients as email. Here's a list called Dairy-L. It's a list of interest to dairy farmers. There's topics on flies in the barn, milk marketing, diseases that cows get, and lots of other topics that actual dairy farmers, of whom there are a surprising number on the net, are interested in. Subscribing to this list is very simple. All I have to do is send a brief email message to the list administrator. So here I send a message to the administrator, which is named listserv@umdd.umd at the University of Maryland. The subject doesn't matter. And the contents of the message is subscribe, Dairy-L, and my actual name. Send this off, and now I'll get all the messages from that list. I subscribe to lots of other mailing lists as well. Two others I like are called Frequent Flyer, for people who fly a lot, and one called ComPriv, about the future of the internet as it moves to private commercial operation.
Another great example is a list for movie reviews and comments. But watch out, some active lists could dump as many as 100 pieces of mail in your mailbox every day. Subscribe to a few lists and you might end up canceling the rest of your life just so you can keep up with your email. Fortunately, it's just as easy to unsubscribe as it is to subscribe in the first place.
Nobody has a complete list of all the mailing lists on the internet. I don't think there is a complete list of anything on the net. But a good place to start is with a computer at MIT. Its email address is mailserver@rtfm.mit.edu. Let's send it a message. I create a message. I set the address. The subject doesn't matter. Now I'll send it this message. Send usenet/news.answers/mailing-lists/part1. In this case, you have to be careful that the message says exactly what we're showing you here, because we're not sending this to a person. Really, we're sending it to a very simple-minded computer. This message will get the first part of the list of mailing lists and the email address of each list administrator. From this long list, you can get an idea of what's out there. Later, you can ask the computer for parts 2, 3, and so on from the extensive 14-part list.
The catalog of lists at MIT is updated every month, so you may want to check it every now and then for new lists. And if you don't find the topic you're just dying to discuss, well, you can start your own mailing list.
Sometimes, leaving a message on a computer just doesn't cut it. You want instant feedback. Well, the internet has something for that. Actually, a couple of somethings. One is called chat. Chat lets you talk online with other people who are online at the same time. All kinds of people. Jennifer Sutton works at Gallaudet University in Washington, D.C. Because she has been deaf since she was 12 years old, Jennifer sometimes has difficulty communicating with the majority of people who are not deaf. Often, they can't use American Sign Language, and it's not always possible for Jennifer to read lips. But Jennifer has found a new way to communicate with people at work and at home.
Gradually, I started hearing more and more about internet, and I decided to try it out. I've used it a lot for email and a little bit to talk to people. Sometimes I use IRC or Talk or something like that.
Jennifer has met literally hundreds of people on the net, people who talk to her by typing messages on their computers.
I think IRC really helps me to develop new interests and new contacts. I've met a lot of people through IRC who are working in the same field or have the same beliefs. Most of the time, people don't realize I'm disabled. I just type, they type. There's no way for them to know that I have any kind of disability. It never really comes up unless a person asks for my phone number, and then it comes up, but the rest of the time, never.
Quite a few deaf people use the internet, but you're not likely to know it when you're chatting with one unless he or she decides to tell you. The most widely used chat program is something called the Internet Relay Chat, or IRC. If your system permits, you simply type IRC, or you click on it like this to start it right up. Once you're in, you'll often find hundreds and hundreds of simultaneous conversations going on. To get a list of what the topics of these conversations are, you simply type /list and enter to get a list that is here in this little box. Now, I happen to know that there's a discussion group here called TV Show, and I open it up and you can see there are people here talking. Just to let everyone know I'm here, I'll say hello, are you there? And we'll see if we get an answer. You know, this is a lot like the old CB radios, because what you're really doing is all talking to each other on the same channel for a while, and people come in and have your arguments, etc. Now, there are a lot of other commands you can do here. You can find out what they are simply by typing /help at the prompt, and it's as easy as that.
Chat is mostly used for gossiping, which can be fun, but some of the people whose job it is to keep computer servers up and running regard chat as a computer resource hog and not very useful. For that reason, some systems don't provide any chat software at all. However, you can reach chat programs by using another program called Telnet. We'll tell you more about Telnet later.
Besides chat, you can use another program called Talk to communicate with others. Talk is sort of like making a personal phone call to an individual, except it's by computer. Now, to do this, you simply type Talk plus the other person's name and address. In this case, I'm calling my friend Tom, and he happens to be at Rice University, which is where we are. And let's see if he picks up. This is kind of like a telephone ringing. There he is. He's talking to me. He says hi there. I say, hello yourself. What's for lunch? And hopefully it's not pastrami. Now, we each have a split screen and we can see what we both type. Of course, in many instances, I'm not sure that this is better than talking on the phone. In fact, obviously it's not. But it is a great way to save on long-distance charges, particularly on overseas calls. And it can help if the other person doesn't speak your language very well. Every community has its own standards of behavior and manners, and the internet is no different. The first thing you should remember is that communicating by computer has its own limitations. Because you're writing rather than speaking, people don't get to see your facial expression or hear your tone of voice, and that could change the meaning of the actual words. So pay careful attention to what you write and how you write it. For example, messages written in all caps are taken as though you're shouting.
That seems awfully rude. And speaking of rude, there's flaming.
Flaming. Unusually pointless and excessive outrage in electronic mail has become so common that it's now got its own name, flaming. If you receive an angry message, you've been flamed. Unfortunately, a few people seem to enjoy sending these kinds of messages.
My recommendation is that even if you get a really offensive message and you just have to reply, don't. In 20 years of using electronic mail, I have never regretted not sending an angry message. And I have regretted sending a few.
Now, why would anyone send an angry message to you? Well, there are a few things that make internauts grind their teeth, and one common mistake that newbies make all the time is to...
Newbies. That's a term for newcomers to the internet. Like most newcomers to any society, newbies tend to make a few social mistakes or violate a few customs. And of course, people who got there slightly ahead of a newbie sometimes like to lord it over them.
Okay, now a common mistake that newcomers make is to leap into newsgroup discussions without first observing the dynamics of a particular group. What's an acceptable comment to one group may not be acceptable to another. It's best to read what others are saying for a while before you join in. Hanging around like this is called lurking. Remember, lurking is good.
Another bit of netiquette revolves around FAQs, or frequently asked questions. Nearly every Usenet group on the internet has a list of FAQs and the answers to them. While people on the internet can be extremely helpful, they really don't like wasting their time answering the same question that's been asked over and over before. So please, read those FAQs. If your question is computer related, you could read the manual first, and if you can't get the answer that way, then ask.
And if you want to send a message with a little humor in it, there's a way to show that intention too. You can type what we call a smiley. Here's one. Now just turn your head sideways and you can see how it works.
Okay, we've told you about news groups, about chat and talk. Now, if what you really want is to find and get cool stuff like free software on the internet, well, you might need a Gopher, or maybe Archie. And if you like Archie, you should definitely get to know Jughead and Veronica. We'll tell you why when we come back in a few minutes.
This public television station has got lots of cool stuff too. Unique programming and a commitment to serving your community. Let this station know how much you appreciate it by calling the number you see on your screen and pledging your financial support. Remember, good television is worth it.